Okay, today we're going to discuss the sales process. This is an introduction to selling. Obviously selling is a big complex subject, so this will serve as a short introduction to the segments of the selling process that you should get to know and understand. It's true, the sales process is not all chaos, although it may seem like it sometimes to folks that are new to it. Although there's lots of human interactions and lots of conversations, and it can be somewhat complex, but there really is somewhat of a science to how it's executed, how it's tracked, and how you should go through the process of selling a client. So what we're looking at right here is what we call the timeline, the sales timeline. And that's the best thing to get comfortable with to begin to understand the process. So what this timeline shows us is a start to finish look at how you're selling a customer. It starts over here and it moves down through closure and production of whatever your product is. So these segments are very important to understand. Market research, getting to know your market, prospecting, how you start to find potential customers, demo, discussion or presentation, that's the actual sales conversation, pipeline management, which will be a new concept to some, but it's very important, meaning what's happening inside of all of the different conversations you're having, and then closure, moving toward a closure to the sale of a contract. I also put handoff and production in here. We'll talk about that a little bit. That's important as well, because if you have a great sales process and you have bad handoff and production, that will cause problems. So let's look briefly at what each of these is going to be. There will be separate videos that will go into depth about all the concepts discussed under each one of these headings. The first here is market research. Market research covers things like sizing, initial pricing conversations, and market segmentation. This is important because you have to go through the process of saying how many potential clients are there out there, or how many potential buyers for my product are there out there, what will they pay, what do I think they'll pay. You're going to be wrong a lot at this point, but what do I think they will pay, and where's the value? And then how do I split up those customers into different groups? Are there demographic or behavioral or financial or geographic differences between those customers that will affect how they purchase my product, or if they purchase my product at all? So that's important to sort of set the stage for who you're going to talk to. The second piece is prospecting. Prospecting means you're going out and finding people and having initial conversations around your product. So that's really the whole goal, is to have that first conversation. Really what you're trying to do is transition that conversation into something we call a lead, which would move you into the third section, meaning they've expressed some interest in your product and they want to know more. And also this is an information gathering section. You're really, because it's your first touch at a potential customer, you're going to be finding out what they like and what they don't like, what they respond to or what they don't respond to about your message or your pitch. And then after prospecting, you transition into demo, discussion, presentation. The reason I call it this is if it's a piece of software, it might be a demo. If it's a physical product, it might be a demonstration. It might just be a presentation if it's a service. So this is essentially just means the sales conversation. You'll notice down here that I have this written, sales cycle. When people talk about the sales cycle, it generally refers to the first contact with the customer that happens during the prospecting stage to closure. How long does it take you from first contact to closure? So this is sort of in the middle of what we call the sales cycle. We're going to talk about materials and collateral. What do you need to do these demos and have these conversations effectively? What do you need to show a potential client and why? Sales conversations, how do you execute them? What happens during the sales conversation? What are best practices around how to sell? Objections and responses. This is a very common thing in sales that someone says, well, I don't want to buy that because of X, Y, Z. So how do you deal with those and how do you respond to them? And then pricing and ROI, of course, are very important. How much is someone going to pay for the product and why? What value are they going to get out of the product? And then we will move into pipeline management, which is, after you've had your first discussion, there are many steps before a customer will make a decision. So what are those steps? Well, you define those levels. How do you define progress in your sales process or your sales cycle? And then also we'll talk about ratios. And what ratios mean is, how many people have had a first conversation or a second conversation or a third. We'll get into that, but you're going to get to know your pipeline ratios. And then you're going to talk about advancing deals. How do we make deals move forward in the pipeline or get closer to closure? And then, of course, closure, which is a little bit of black magic, but a very important part of the process. How do you finally get a client to say yes? to sign a contract and put a signature down. And then the final thing is handoff in production. Great, you've closed the deal, the client signed on the dotted line. Now you actually have to deliver the product or the service. So how do you set up your sales process to feed the rest of your company the information it needs to deliver the product? So this is really a look at a basic sales process, and within that process is a basic sales cycle. Really important. The reason you do this is because the more organized you are, the better ability you have to diagnose a problem. You'll be able to tell where clients are stopping if you're not closing any deals, and then you'll be able to test solutions. You'll say, okay, if I know there's a problem, well, let's try something new here and see what happens. You can't do that if you have a chaotic sales process that is not organized. So this is the introduction to the sales process. We'll have videos on each section.